The film opens with a scene that's a total zoo. A man, his eyes bugging out of his head, was going off the rails in a police station, fueled by a serious addiction to drugs. The place was a dumpster fire, with a dozen cops scrambling to try and get him under control. But it was like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. He's kicking, screaming, and acting like a man possessed. And then, out of thin air, a new guy walked in. He was a total enigma, and his name was Danny. Without so much as batting an eye, Danny casually held out a single bottle of soda, and like a miracle, the man immediately calmed down. The cops looked on in total disbelief. They'd been a total mess, and this guy tamed the beast with nothing but a fizzy drink. It was a hell of a first impression. After the chaos settled, we see Danny sitting across from the terrified man. He was a small-time criminal who knew a thing or two about the local scene. Danny offered a massive amount of cash, an offer that would change the guy's life forever. Danny told him to take the money, and all he had to do in return was give up the mastermind behind the drug operation. The allure of the money was too strong, and he finally shook Danny's hand, cementing the deal. Not long after, Danny paid a visit to an old friend of his, a drug courier named Chris. The two had a long history, and Chris was a guy who liked to keep a low profile. Danny broke the news to him. He needed Chris's help to set up the big boss, and if he didn't, Chris would be going straight to prison. It was a cold-blooded move, a backstabbing betrayal that weighed heavily on Chris. But he knew that to get a snake, you had to think like one, and he agreed to help. The next day, a few low-level thugs were on the prowl. They were waiting to pick up their package from Chris when their car bumped into a luxury sedan, and a woman got out to check on the damage. One of the thugs, a scrawny dude with a serious case of the creeps, immediately knew that something was off. This was too clean, too easy. He screamed at his buddies to floor it, and just as they peeled out of the alley, a mob of police came screaming at them, hitting their car and blocking their path. What happened next was a total chaos. The police looked more like they were starting a riot than making an arrest, and it looked like a scene from an action movie. But the thugs were surprisingly good drivers, weaving through the chaos. Just as they were about to get away, Danny came out of nowhere, a true loose cannon with a reckless disregard for the rules. He cut them off with his Jeep, forced them to a stop, and, with a smile on his face, arrested all three men. He was a force to be reckoned with. After the chaotic takedown, Danny casually walked back into the police station and handed the addict he arrested before the cash as promised. The look on the cops' faces was pure disbelief. They couldn't wrap their heads around what just happened. It was in that moment that Danny's true identity was revealed. He was a professional informant, a Yadang, living a double life on the razor's edge between law enforcement and the criminal underworld. The cops saw him as a force of nature, but they knew they needed his help to get their hands dirty and bring down the real bad guys. The film then flashes back 3 years, painting a picture of Danny's life before all the chaos. He was just a regular guy, a hard-working taxi driver, saving up for something that was probably pretty important. One night he picked up a customer who was a total mess, a man who looked like he had been going off the deep end. The man offered him a drink, telling him it would help him stay awake. But what Danny didn't know was that he was about to become an unsuspecting pawn in a game he didn't even know he was playing. The drink was laced, and the next thing he knew, he was waking up with a dozen cops arresting him. He was framed, a fall guy for a crime he didn't commit. In prison, Danny was in a world of hurt. It was sink or swim, and he was sinking fast. The other inmates, led by a ruthless gangster named Baron, immediately made him a target. Baron was a big shot behind bars, a knack for running his entire drug empire from inside the prison walls. He used his connections to get anything he wanted, from contraband to information, and he had no problem going after the new guy to prove a point. Danny was in the trenches, a lamb to the slaughter, but he was a survivor. Meanwhile, we're introduced to Wallace, a low-ranking prosecutor who was fed up with the system. His office was filled with endless paperwork, and his day-to-day was a total nightmare of dealing with the endless stream of drug addicts who were being thrown into the system. He compared the addicts to cockroaches. They just kept coming, no matter what he did. One day, a real cockroach crawled onto his desk, and in a flash of genius, he had a brilliant idea. He realized that to get rid of the infestation, he had to find the nest. And to find the nest, he had to send in a single cockroach. And that's when he found Danny. Wallace knew that Danny was different, that he was a fall guy who was in over his head. Wallace was a professional, and he knew a good asset when he saw one. He tested Danny's memory and was blown away by his ability to remember every single detail. Wallace laid out his plan. He would get Danny out of prison, and in return, Danny would go undercover and spy on Barron and his operation. Danny, who was desperate to get out of the slammer, agreed without a moment's hesitation. It was a deal with the devil, and it was the start of his new life as a Yadang. Back in prison, Danny went to work, earning his spot in Barron's crew. He was a natural, a total chameleon. With a little help from Wallace, he beat down anyone who even thought about giving Barron trouble, quickly earning a reputation as a total animal. He even managed to set up one of the other inmates, making it look like he was trying to rat on Barron. The move was a stroke of genius, and it got him noticed. In no time, he was a full-fledged member of the gang, getting all the juicy details and reporting every single conversation to Wallace. It wasn't long before Wallace had everything he needed to get a warrant, and in a flash, Barron was taken down and his entire operation was dismantled. Danny was a free man, and Wallace's career took off like a rocket. The two were closer than ever, a true Di-Janisek duo with a bond that was thicker than blood. Wallace had found the little brother he never knew he needed. Back in the present, a young actress named Leslie was in a world of trouble. She had been busted for using an illegal substance, and she was in an interrogation room with Police Chief Sean. She was a total nervous wreck, insisting that she had no idea what she had taken, thinking it was just a diet pill. Sean had seen it all, and he wasn't buying it, but something about her story just felt right. He looked at a picture on her phone and recognized the man in the photo. He knew that Leslie was just a pawn in a game she didn't know she was playing. He made her an offer she couldn't refuse. He'd let her go free if she gave up her dealer. Meanwhile, Danny and Wallace were out celebrating Wallace's promotion that evening. Danny raised his glass and gave Wallace a gift, a new lead for another case. It was a blue crystal kind of drug that was all the rage on the street. He dropped a name, a vicious gangster named Harry, and just like that, they had their next target. Unexpectedly, Harry was the same guy who had given Leslie the diet pills, the same person Officer Sean was after. At the same time, Harry was meeting with a North Korean smuggler named Janice in an abandoned warehouse. It was a tense situation, and the two were throwing daggers at each other. Harry's crew looked like they were ready to go to war, their hands hovering over their weapon, ready to take anyone down who got in their way. They were a ruthless bunch, and it was clear that they were not to be trifled with. The deal went down, and Harry got into his car and sped away. As he drove, his phone rang. It was Danny, and he was pretending to be a friend, a voice on the inside who was trying to help him escape from Officer Sean. He was told to head for the train station, as it was his only chance to get away. Danny then took off, cutting off Officer Sean's team and buying Harry a few extra minutes. But it was all a ruse. As Harry arrived at the station, he was greeted by Sean's team, their guns drawn, ready to take him down. But then, a train pulled up, and as it stopped, Wallace and his entire team came out of nowhere, ready for an arrest. Harry had been set up, a snake caught in a trap of his own making. In the back of the car, Harry was in a total panic. Wallace and Danny were coming at him from all angles, a 1-2 punch that left him rattled. They weren't interested in a confession. They wanted a bigger fish. Wallace laid out a deal. He would go easy on Harry if he helped them catch the kingpin, the guy who was really calling the shots. Meanwhile, in another part of town, Officer Sean got a tip from his informant, Leslie. She told him about an exclusive party at a luxury hotel, a gathering of the city's elite, including Nathan, the son of a presidential candidate. The whole thing was a ticking time bomb. As the party got started, Wallace, Danny, and their team were already in place, but this time, he had Harry and his crew with him. Danny was wearing a pair of high-tech glasses with a hidden camera, a secret weapon that would record every single detail of the night. He was in the thick of it, recording everything, from Leslie's nervous arrival to Nathan's smug look. Just as the party was hitting its stride, Officer Sean and his team burst in, guns drawn, but he was a few steps behind, missing the perfect opportunity to catch the high-profile criminals in the act. He was a total mess, frustrated that Wallace had beaten him to the punch. It was a complete disaster, and to make matters worse, his informant, Leslie, was caught in the crossfire under drug influence. With Nathan arrested, the real games began. The presidential candidate, his father, immediately sent his top lawyer to Wallace's office. The lawyer was a total snake in the grass, offering Wallace a massive promotion and a life of power and prestige. It was a deal with the devil, and Wallace, who had always acted like a man of honor, quickly showed his true colors. He took the deal without a second thought, his hunger for power taking over. As a first act of betrayal, he made a call and ordered Harry to get the camera glasses from Danny. Harry and his men were a total handful, and they were on a mission. They tracked down Danny and attacked him without a moment's hesitation. The fight was brutal, with Harry's men using every dirty trick in the book to get their hands on the glasses. He was beaten so badly he even had his feet run over. At the same time, Officer Sean was being arrested for a crime he didn't commit, a total frame job orchestrated by the same people who had just sent Harry to get Danny. Just as Danny was on the brink of passing out, Harry injected him with a massive dose of the drug, and as Danny fell to the ground, Harry lit a lighter and set his feet on fire. He was a man possessed, a total sadist who didn't care about the consequences. With the footage in his hands, he left Danny for dead. 3 months had passed, and Danny was a shell of his former self. He was a shadow of the man he used to be, now a full-blown drug addict, a pawn in a game he didn't even want to play after the incident that night with Harry. His body was a total mess, and his mind was a battlefield. But he wasn't alone. His old friend Chris had been by his side, helping him through the withdrawals, a true friend who never gave up on him. Danny was alive, but he was a total basket case, haunted by the betrayal and the burning rage for Harry. He swore he would get his revenge, no matter what it took. At the same time, in a packed courtroom, Sean was finally free. The verdict came in, and he was found not guilty. His name finally cleared. His wife and daughter were in tears, hugging him and celebrating his long-awaited freedom. But the relief was short-lived. A total snake in the grass from a rival political campaign approached him, offering him a deal to take down Nathan's father. Sean saw right through it. He wasn't interested in revenge. He just wanted to be with his family and live a quiet life. He turned down the offer, a true testament to his character. Meanwhile, Leslie was in her new element. The girl who had once been a pampered celebrity was now a hardened informant working for herself. That night, she was on a mission, and she was a total chameleon. She managed to get the information she needed and was on her way out when she ran into Danny, who then zapped her and took her from there unconscious. Later that night, Danny found Sean. Sean's blood ran cold. He recognized Danny's face, the face of the man who he thought had set him up. In a fit of rage, he took a swing, connecting with Danny's jaw. Leslie came out of nowhere, stopping Sean from another punch. The three of them stood there in silence, a total mess of emotions, until Leslie finally brought them all into a private room. Danny pulled up his pant leg, revealing his burned feet, a total nightmare that proved he was a victim, just like them. In that room, Danny laid out the entire conspiracy. He told them that Harry was a total monster, a drug kingpin who now had a full-blown army, including the North Korean smuggler, Janice. He explained that they had all been played pawns in a larger game. They talked for a while, and at the end of the night, they formed a total dream team. Their plan was simple. Danny and Sean would go after Harry to get the video footage, the one piece of evidence that could bring him down. Meanwhile, Leslie would go undercover at a party Nathan was throwing to get additional footage and seal the deal once and for all. The next day, Danny and Sean found themselves at the doorstep of Janice, the North Korean smuggler. Janice was a woman of few words, and she wasn't interested in their little mission. But when she heard the target was Harry, her demeanor shifted. She had a personal bone to pick with him. She agreed to join their team and laid out Harry's entire smuggling operation. The drivers, she explained, were creatures of habit and would always stop at the same restaurant before a shipment. This was their golden ticket, the perfect chance to take Harry down once and for all. Without wasting a second, the two men headed to the restaurant to find their target. Just as they arrived, they saw the driver there. He was a total meathead, and with him was Harry's right-hand man. This was it. But then, a black sedan pulled up, and out walked Harry himself. Sean's blood ran cold. He had lost his cool, and his mind was a total mess. He charged forward, a lone wolf on a mission, a total disregard for the plan. The entire place went up in chaos. The restaurant was now a total battlefield, with Sean taking on Harry's goons. Meanwhile, Harry tried to make a run for it, but he ran into Danny. The two went head-to-head, a total brawl between them. In the end, Harry was caught. They took him down, and from him, they found the camera footage that was their golden ticket. Meanwhile, Leslie was putting on a show. She was at the party Nathan was throwing, and the place was a total circus. She was a master of her craft, and despite the effects of the drugs, she was recording every single detail. from the faces of the most powerful people in the country to the drug deals going down in plain sight. As Danny was celebrating his win, he was hit with a realization, a total gut punch that left him reeling. He found out that the one person who had caused all his suffering was Wallace, his brother, his friend, a man he had trusted with his life. Unbeknownst to Danny and Sean, Wallace was a step ahead of them. One of Sean's crew members was a spy, a mole in their operation, and he had already told Wallace everything. Wallace knew they were coming for him. He immediately called Nathan, warning him that Leslie was a total snitch. But Leslie was too fast. She had already made her escape with Chris. As Leslie and Chris drove away, Sean called them, his voice filled with a sense of relief. He told them that they had done it, that they were finally going to be free. Sean suddenly brought about the case that ripped everything Leslie had, and he showed his most apologetic face. But suddenly Chris's car was hit by an oncoming truck. The incident took a dark turn. Leslie was moments away from death. Nathan's goons showed up, stealing her phone and taking her life. Sean and Danny arrived on the scene and were a total mess, heartbroken at the loss of their friend and the evidence that came with her. Sean was so mad he looked like he was possessed, his voice full of rage as he told Danny that Leslie and Chris's deaths wouldn't be in vain. They needed a new plan, something that would hit Wallace where it hurt. Danny, seeing the look in Sean's eyes, decided to use the one thing they still had, the hotel footage. He sent it to Wallace as bait, a single line on the fishing pole to reel in a shark, and it hit the spot. The two men finally met, and it was the darkest moment in the film. Danny looked into the eyes of the man he once called a brother, only to see the face of the devil himself. Wallace didn't even try to hide it. He saw Danny as a pawn, a small-time criminal who had somehow managed to get on his bad side. The next day, Danny met with Janice. Sean was planning to hand over the hotel footage to Nathan's rival, a move that would take down the entire presidential campaign. But Janice had a secret agenda. She betrayed them, a total double cross. And as Sean was on his way to make the exchange, he was ambushed and arrested. But what Wallace didn't know was that Sean's footage was just a copy. The original was still with Danny. Wallace, feeling the walls closing in, made a calculated move. He released the copy of the footage to the public, a total stunt to make himself look like a hero. Wallace began interrogating Sean, asking him where they hid the real footage and Danny's whereabouts. But Sean wouldn't give in, so Wallace threatened to hurt his family. It was a dirty move, but it worked. Sean broke, giving up Danny's location. Wallace immediately called Harry, ordering him to kill Danny. As public pressure mounted, Nathan was forced to undergo an impromptu urine test. It was a total nightmare, and he knew he was in a world of trouble. But before the sample could be examined, a staff member came out of nowhere, giving him a fake sample to swap. It was all a part of a larger, more sinister plan orchestrated by Wallace, leading to Nathan being pronounced not guilty. Not long after, a bunch of politicians and officials came to congratulate Wallace and Nathan. With the young man being proven not guilty, his father's presidential candidacy reached an all-time high. They then turned on the television to watch the presidential debate, but something wasn't right. A reporter began talking about a live broadcast, a secret conversation between Nathan and Wallace that was being streamed to the entire country. The mastermind behind the entire operation was none other than Danny, the man they thought they had taken down for good. Meanwhile, Harry was heading to Danny's car, ready to take him out, but he was met with a surprise ambush from Janice's crew. It was a total shock, a double cross that no one saw coming. It was then revealed that Janice's betrayal was all a part of Danny's plan. He had been playing a long game, a total mastermind with a plan that was so crazy it just might work. Harry was a total mess, his entire operation crumbling around him, and his life ended that night. It was also revealed that Sean's capture wasn't a mistake. It was all a part of Danny's plan. Danny knew that Wallace would go to Sean for information, and he was ready for him. During the interrogation, Sean had swapped Wallace's lighter with a bugged one, a single piece of evidence that would bring him down. Wallace's entire world was crumbling around him. In a rage, he took off, going after Danny himself. The two men finally met on a rooftop, and the duel between two former friends, a Yadang and a prosecutor, was on. With the aftermath of the live broadcast, the fallout was a total train wreck. Nathan's father lost the trust of the people, his political career going up in smoke. Nathan himself was a complete mess, his mind a total battlefield after being exposed on live television. On the other hand, Wallace couldn't run from the law anymore. He was a goner, and everyone knew it. His reign of terror was over, a total disaster for a man who thought he was untouchable. In the final moments of the film, we see Danny back in his element, making a deal with Janice. He was getting a large sum of money, a reward for his hard work. But what he didn't know was that Sean was watching him from a distance. Just as the deal was about to go down, a police raid happened, and it was a total zoo. Danny grabbed the bag of money and took off, with Sean in hot pursuit. Danny and Sean came face to face. But instead of an arrest, they both broke out in laughter. They had both found their own way to do justice on their own terms, outside of a system that had tried to destroy them. Sean and Danny decided to split the money, a final act of rebellion, a total handshake between two men who had been through a living hell.